I am so jealous of you. You have no idea. My whole life, all I've ever wanted to be able to do is like go sit with people and just bust out a guitar or sit down the piano and just be able to play something. Like, it's such an amazing talent to have.
So, Dizzy Gillespie was one of those people that kind of laid the groundwork for Jazz for Peace, and it's in the lyrics that I wrote to that song.
You knew Dizzy Gillespie?
I did.
Oh, wow. That must have been amazing.
Because we used to smoke pot in the dressing room.
Of course he did. Of course. Are you kidding? Why wouldn't he?
Right. So one time, someone came from the Boston Globe, and he was taking a giant hit of, pot. And the guy said, "Hey, this is so-and-so from the Boston Globe wants to interview you." And his cheeks popped out.
I was going to say, no.
And then by the time I made it to Chicago, I got a letter from Barack Obama.
Oh, wow.
Because he had been a senator.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? So then by the time I got to Kenya, I got a letter from the prime minister. You see what I mean?
Music brings all of us together, no matter race, color, culture, creed, doesn't matter. Hi, everybody. This is Dan and Dante. Welcome to another episode of Middle-Aged Mess, the show for people who figure as long as the dog licks it, it's going to get better. Today, we're going a little off-brand today. I mean, normally we get in the whole middle-aged thing and old people and fat and bald and cellulite and all that stuff. And today we're getting rid of all that. We're bringing in Rick DellaRatta. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. Pleasure to be here.
Rick has a super interesting story, and the things he's doing with music are fucking unbelievable, and I'm really excited to hear all the things he's going to say and the songs he's going to play and everything like that. So let's kind of get into it. Rick, before we get into like what you do today, I always like to get a little bit of the backstory and know like where you grew up and kind of how you got where you are today. So how did the Rick DellaRatta story start?
Well, it started in upstate New York. I was, a paper boy taking piano lessons, and then one thing led to another. I ended up in the band of my homeroom teacher's sons that wanted to play at the school dances. And then there was a grown-up band that wanted to sneak me in and out of, grown-up places so I could play keyboard.
So let me stop you. Let me stop you and ask you a question now. So most people start with music to get girls. 99% of musicians start. Now, you started obviously a lot earlier than that. Were you trying to get the first grade girls, or like what?
Well, I was onto it because I was dancing around with my grandmother and aunt, and I think we were dancing to the Beatles at that time. They just had the Beatles. And we were just dancing around, and like, I want to hold your hand or something. We were holding hands and dancing. And I was like, I can see this being something that not only do people like, but, girls like. And, you'd be surprised. You're young. You're too young to really like girls, but you're going to like them. Like you already have a feeling. You know that that's on the horizon. So you're already preparing a little bit for that. So I agree with you 100%.
How old were you at the time? How old when you started playing? Is it all piano, or do you play other instruments too?
Well, what happened was, I can play some other instruments. It's funny because sometimes, like at a jam session or something, I'll just like throw everybody off kilter by coming up and playing the drums. You know what I mean? And people love it, and I love it. It's like cathartic.
I don't know what you mean. And let me tell you something. Here's why I wanted to have you on the show so much, Rick. I am so jealous of you. You have no idea. My whole life, all I've ever wanted to be able to do is like go sit with people and just bust out a guitar or sit down the piano and just be able to play something. Like, it's such an amazing talent to have, not just for social interaction, but just because like you got to feel kind of badass when you can just break out into the song right there,
I agree with you 100%, but I mean, a lot of people tell me that, but when they do tell me that, I always, the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh my God, if they only knew, you know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
Because the music industry itself, revelations are coming out now, as probably you've heard on social media, because certainly these rap
Diddy.
guys are.
Yes, Diddy.
Yeah, you're hearing that stuff now. It's coming out, and it really is horrific industry. I mean, it really is this. I mean, musicians would complain, and artists would complain that it was the greatest activity with the worst. You know what I mean? So you had the best and the worst going on. You had the very lowest of the low and the industry, and then you had the highest of the high in terms of you being able to do what you're talking about. Achieve your goals and all that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I grew up in Los Angeles, so and a lot of my friends were in the industry, right? The entertainment industry, right. And as much as everybody wants to get into it, and people come from all over the world to LA to try to become a star, like I knew the stories of how horrific that not just music, but film and any type of entertainment, it's a horrible, horrible industry to be in, you know? Terrible.
Yes, it really is. And that's where we get into like, your show and your theme of your show, because anybody who's been involved, I would think, in the music industry aspect of it, or, just try. Because the thing is, it's one thing to learn the instrument, but once you put all that time in,
Yeah.
see, if you could just do it and then not, overnight and not put any time in it and then get the thrills that you're describing, that would be great. But you're putting all that effort in, you want to get something back in
Yeah.
terms of a career amortization, and that's where you run into some very challenging waters. And again, that's what a lot of people are facing, that listen to your show. And so, I've been through some very challenging times, so I can really relate to people.
So
I was actually originally
let's hear about the challenging times when you segued into being a professional musician. What was give me the tales of woe, as they say.
There's so many, I don't even know where to start. But the first one that comes to mind, just boom, comes
Yeah.
to my mind, is if you're an artist, the first thing you do is outgrow that which just got you a job. So,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
totally.
that's problem A. I was just, for some reason or other, I just clicked on something by accident, or I was a YouTube short, and I saw a well known guitar player who had been on an interview talking about how torturous it was to continue to play with the band he was famous in,
Yeah.
because that's where, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's where, yeah, that was where the demand was. But he had outgrown it. And, I remember that interview. I clicked on that YouTube short and I could see him absolutely. I'm like, oh my God, I can actually see what he's saying.
Yeah.
So imagine. So that's one problem. And then here's the other thing: when you grow out of that which was a comfort zone because you grew into an opportunity to make a living, function in the music industry, play in a Broadway show, whatever it is, play in the this or that. Now you've outgrown it, and what have you grown into? Well, peril. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
Because
trapped. You're
now,
trapped. And then golden handcuffs. You're making money, you're successful, but the reality is it's not the art you want to put out.
unless you want to be an artist, and then you could really end up in trouble. You know what I mean? Because now
Totally.
you have, I have a book coming out called, and I have it in front of me. It's right
Let's
over
hear it.
here.
Let's say it.
Here's the book. So the book is called "Paving the Path for Peace Through Music," and I actually have an author, Deborah Arcertelli, but I was asked to write the foreword, and I wrote a foreword about Mozart because I don't think a lot of people understood that he did really well when he was a little 7-year old, mimicking Beethoven or whoever he mimicked. I don't even know, but mimicking other people, and like a parrot, doing really well financially. But then he started to grow as an artist, and he started to outgrow the ability to kowtow to the archbishop.
So, Rick, I'm going to let you live my dream for 1 second here, and I'm going to live through you. I want you to go ahead and play a Mozart piece right now and just show us how you can do it at the drop of a
Okay,
hat.
so well, what I'm going to do is do something that Mozart used to do. He was a great improviser, and he used to just improvise.
See it. Let's hear it.
So he would take a theme, take a song, and he would do something magical with it. Now that was fantastic. If you ever saw the movie Amadeus,
Yeah,
he
of
did that
course.
and thrilled people at parties or whatever.
And
But
he made
it's
fun of Salieri doing it, which was the best part of
he
that film.
Right. And then Salieri, of course, those people who are jealous of him, they're after they want blood. So you have
Right.
these people against him, and they're going to try to turn the archbishop against him because, the archbishop is, they're trying to corrupt his mind, like, oh, he's not playing as conventionally as we are. We're playing for you. You're great. So I'm going to take because we're both of a certain age here. We're a song that a middle-aged person listening to your show probably can relate
Let's
to,
do it.
and it's a Beach Boys song.
Rock it
So
out,
I'm gonna
man.
start. God only knows,
Oh, one
and
of
I'm
my
gonna
favorite, one of
go.
the greatest songs ever made, by the way.
You're right. You're right. It's funny because it was requested to me by people, and I was telling them, "Hey, I'm going to these podcasts. All kinds of people are listening. They're not jazz aficionados. I want to just play any song. What should I play?" And people would send in different songs. This one was like someone requested it,
And by the way,
and
before Brian Wilson died last year, he lived around the
yes,
block from me for the last 10 years of his life. I used to bump into him in the deli all the time. And he was, kind of out there. And I'd say, hey, Brian, how you doing? And he would just look at me. And I'd met him like 10 times. And every time he just kind of looked at me like, what? No idea. But there you go. That's my claim to fame.
there's a guy that went through it because
Yeah.
there you had those Beach Boys, right, with that nice surfer music and all that, and then Brian Wilson grows way out of that and
Yeah.
starts expanding the palette for harmony and pop music way beyond anything I'd ever heard of. And then, of course, you have this song here, what I'm going to play. You're going to hear these harmonies that do not sound like surfer music,
I'm super excited. Rick, do
All
your
right, here we
thing.
go. I got to turn this off. So glad I'm going to remember to do
This
this,
is
and then I'll
awesome.
turn it back on when I finish.
Great.
Now I'm going to go into something like I said. I
Take
don't
your
even know what's
time.
gonna happen.
Take your time, Rick. Just go. I got
I
nothing else
don't
to
even
do.
know what's going to happen after I get through the little melody here.
Go for it.
I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, though life will still go on, believe me, the world could show nothing to me. So what good would leaving do me? God only knows what I'd be without you. God only knows what I'd be without you. God only knows what I'd be without you.
Whoa. Rick, you want to go out on a date? You are definitely a jazz pianist, man. There's no question about that. What a dream. What a dream to be up there and to just create. Like, I mean, how much that's I mean, that's all improvised, right? All of it.
Yeah, I had, honestly, I couldn't do it again. I don't even know what I did. We'll hear it back when we hear the show. I mean, I'll hear it and I'll be
Wow.
like, "Whoa, what was that?" Because what I do as an artist really that I hope where I'm going to get the best result is when I'm just going to open up the channel and allow something from maybe a higher power, who the heck knows, to come through. And it's related to the moment.
Yeah.
It's related to your energy,
Yeah.
the it's related to the energy going on. It's all everything all plays into it. That's what's so great about jazz. It can never happen if it's done the way I'm doing it. It can never happen again, and I'm proof. If you ever ask me to do what I just did,
Yeah,
I
it looked like you just checked out, man. You were just gone and your fingers were just going. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch art happen before your eyes. It really is, you know?
Yeah, and for something like that to come from, like that auspicious introduction, from a Beach Boys song. I mean, I didn't think it was possible myself until I started doing it.
Yeah. So let's kind of fill out the backstory a little bit. So we go from dancing with grandma in the living room. At some point, you
Right.
became a professional musician, right?
Well, yeah, like I said, I had that paper route and I was, kind of like, okay, this is I get a little few dollars in my pocket. But then one musical thing after another. So it started with we'll start with the piano lessons. So I had to deal with that because what happened was the piano ended up in our living room, I think as a Christmas present for my mother, some kind of thing like that. And I thought Santa Claus brought it in, so I figured I better figure it out on my own. So
Yeah.
I was working on that on my own. So I had that going on. Nobody didn't want anyone to catch me. I wanted to just figure this out all by myself. I didn't want anybody to know. Somebody ratted me out, obviously, and I ended up in piano lessons. The piano lesson, I'm trying to figure it out on my own. And then as I'm progressing, of course, I have the music on the radio that I really liked. I liked listening to the radio and all the hits and the
And
same
you
songs.
grew up in the 70s too, like me, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's just saying, just amazing music back then, right? I mean,
It was great music, and
yeah.
I loved all that. So they were so different because I couldn't, my own exploration, I didn't want to throw away because I was like, wow, this is fascinating. Then I didn't want to throw away the classical music because I was like, that's not gonna help me socially or whatever. But it's not
Yeah.
gonna make me a star. But there's something there, depth, and to channel a
Well,
Chopin
it's
or whatever.
learning music. I mean, that stuff you did. I don't know anything about music, but I'm sure a lot of the things you learned doing classical was just laid out in what you did in the last 5 minutes.
Well, you know what? And the thing is, what happened to me as the journey of Jazz for Peace got so outrageous.
When did the Jazz for Peace concept come up and how did it start?
Well, so now, like I said, when I got overloaded with my mother dumped the church organist thing on me on
Okay.
top of the on top of the grown up band and on top of the kiddie band for the dances. And now I had to quit the paper route. So
Right.
then I just move on. I went to music school. I became a professional musician. I was functioning in society, playing this kind of job, that kind of job, playing piano bars, even where I sang and played all kinds of things to, do my thing. Ended up in New York, played in some famous bands, like
Which one?
orchestra. What?
Which
The
famous bands?
Platters. You remember them from the
Oh,
50s? What?
fuck yeah, I remember the Platters. That's awesome. Who else were you in?
Well, the Platters, the Artie Shaw Orchestra, which was a famous band from the 1920s or whatever, but they were still going as a ghost band. And I was also became in the jazz world. I was opening act and MC for Dizzy Gillespie, so I started to
Oh,
get some just
wow.
things. Yeah,
So you
and
knew Dizzy
then
Gillespie? Wait, you knew Dizzy Gillespie? Like you?
I did. I
Oh,
did.
wow. That must have been amazing.
Well, what's really cool about it is I ended up writing a song about Dizzy Gillespie, one of the great bass players in jazz, who I was playing with. I got it was kind of crazy looking back on it because I started to play with really great musicians. It was around that time where I hooked up with Dizzy Gillespie. After that, I started to play with really great musicians, and then when I came to New York, there were so many great musicians here,
Yeah.
and a musician who had played with man, he played with Chick Corea and he played with Dizzy Gillespie. He played with Miles Davis. He played with just about everybody. Bill Evans, the great Bill Evans, piano player, who's his longest bass player for 13 years. Anyway, he had a melody that he wrote about Dizzy Gillespie, and he asked me to write the lyrics because he knew that I knew Dizzy Gillespie personally because we shared a dressing room night
Oh,
after night.
he,
So I
any
was,
good Dizzy Gillespie stories? You guys go out and pick up on chicks together? Or like, come on, there's got to be a
we
Dizzy
did.
Gillespie.
I wish I did. I mean, the funniest one was because we used to smoke pot in the dressing room.
Of
He
course he
used to,
did. Of course. Are you
yeah,
kidding? Why
right.
wouldn't he?
Right. So one time, someone came from the Boston Globe, came into the dressing room, and he was taking a giant hit of, pot. And the guy said, "Hey, this is so and so from the Boston Globe wants to interview you." And but he just cheeks popped out like when he
I was gonna
did.
say, no, was his cheeks this big when he's smoking pot?
Yeah, they were just huge. It was like really out of the character. It was just out of
That's
a. I was
awesome.
just. I could. It was out of a comic. It was out of a comic book.
That's
What I was
amazing.
looking at. And he did that. I don't know, out of habit. He was just, and they had to say, "No, man, hey, don't worry, no, cool, don't worry about it." And then oh, it was so creeped out, and then everything
That's
was fine with the
fantastic.
interview. But little things like that. I mean, we didn't really like go golfing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Although he did come in once with he came into a gig with alligator shoes that I think were kind of golf-esque shoes or something like that. They
Yeah.
didn't talk about the shoes
It's
for a while.
another place to
Anyway,
smoke
little
pot.
something.
All right, so let's get into Jazz for Peace because that's a super interesting story. I'd love to hear the how that started.
So, Dizzy Gillespie was one of those people that kind of laid the groundwork for Jazz for Peace. And it's in the lyrics that I wrote to that song because he was an inventor of bebop. And just when they thought they had him all figured out, which is the lyrics in the song I wrote for him, he took a trip to Cuba and he started something called Latin jazz. I mean, it's kind of the originator of what we now know as Latin jazz.
Oh
But he
wow.
was also uniting the cultures of Cuba and
Yeah.
America and jazz and Cuban music and these kinds of things. And then he toured with, Louis Armstrong and a lot of other people as a United States jazz ambassador, spreading goodwill through the art form of jazz. So that was kind of prehistoric Jazz for Peace, if you ask me. So that foundation ended up in the Jazz for Peace poem. And the Jazz for Peace poem again came out of me like whatever I played came out of me. That came out of me on the day of 9/11 because
Mm.
I ended up on the roof of my building watching the events of 9/11. I was
Where were
tipped off.
you? Where were you?
I was in the East Village of New York City. Right
Okay.
now, I'm more in the Times Square area where I'm located now.
Okay.
But at that time, I was in the East Village, less than a quarter of a mile
That's
away
really
from.
close to yeah, where all that stuff is
Yes.
happening. Yeah.
So someone had taken pictures of me the day before for her portfolio, and she had a day job on Wall Street, and she got wind of a problem, and she called me because we had just been together the day before, and she just dialed my number. I was like, oh, I hope I didn't wake him up, and she was all frazzled. I went up on the roof. And I was just like, I was expecting to see, a kite or some idiot, some stupid thing,
Yeah.
just some fluke thing. I had no idea what I was going to see. And then when I saw the whole world kind of change per se, that poem just came out of me. That's all I had at the end
Yeah.
of the day was
Yeah.
a poem called Jazz for Peace. Now I was in another situation because now I was at a point where again I had grown out of. So I had grown out of this, grown out of that. I had grown out of being a conventional musician, not really, but
No jazz musician is a conventional musician, though, right? You're really not.
ultimately,
Yeah.
no. I mean, ultimately, no. I mean, the thing is, we, I wanted to play any kind of music because I loved any kind of music. So I wanted to do that and I did do that. But as you grow with your music, it's almost like you're giving birth to compositions. And what are you going to do? You've got this baby, you've got to take care of it.
Yeah.
So I used to it used to almost like, cause stress when I would write something. It's like, oh no, now I've got this composition. How many paying opportunities am I gonna have to sacrifice to try to get this thing recorded or get it released or play it on performances? So it's always the peril of following your star.
Yeah. Yeah.
But ultimately, you kind of have to do it because you're growing spiritually, you're growing musically. So you're growing, you have to follow your journey, you
So the
know?
concept of Jazz for Peace is
The concept of Jazz for Peace, what I did was I took the peace mantle, people had taken the baton around, a certain way around. People like Gandhi, people like John Coltrane, even in jazz, people like, John Lennon, all these people, Give Peace a Chance, all that. Woodstock. And now that I'm taking the mantle further by basically uniting a world-class cultural event using, our country's greatest artistic gift, which was the art form of jazz,
Yes.
uniting that with a fundraising model that I call the empowerment tree. It's exactly like a tree, the whole model. And by uniting those two, I was actually redefining peace by basically making a statement that if we help our world's greatest causes, the most, and these are now not, your dog and pony show nonprofit writing it off on their taxes, but people that are really, if we identify people that are truly committed to, that like their wealth is in the achievement of their passionate goals to help our world, to help our communities. If we help them, we are not only solving a problem that they are trying to solve, but we're reaching all of the people in their outreach, and we have a better chance at avoiding, problems in the future that are going to happen if their mission doesn't, get further along.
So Jazz for Peace, you set up performances between people from different cultures?
Yeah, so it started out as a poem, as you know, nine
Yeah,
eleven. All I
right.
got is a bunch of words. I don't know what I'm going to do with these words. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks went by. The whole country was closed. I couldn't even get buy groceries. I had to show my ID to go because I was in that.
I
I was
recall.
in
I
that
recall.
quarter of a mile thing. I was roped off.
Yeah.
There were like tanks down there, and they open it up, and now I'm going to the Savannah Jazz Festival in Georgia, where I was the headliner
Nice.
with some big names that I was in my band. And we were the headliner. So now I'm going to be in front of 8,500 people. So what am I going to do? Well, I read the poem. So I
Okay.
just recited the poem for 8,500 people. Then that reverberated because so many people heard my poetry, even though I'd only written one poem my whole life.
Rick, let's
So,
play the poem. Let's go. Let's
all
go.
right.
Play it.
I hear jazz for peace. Coming through the trees. My heart, it fills me like a celebration. I see the lights. And I want to follow, inspired by the past contribution of those that came before. When we speak it, people are inspired by the creativity and artistry. It stands for peace and love and humanity. we have in our souls. So we can raise our total conscience. And see the gift of giving is our greatest. I hear jazz. For peace.
What a gift. What a gift you have. And that you get to give to the world on top of it. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, it's come a long way. I mean, I didn't used to quite be able to do something as complete on the just piano as I do now. Jazz is really it is more of it's an interplay kind of art form. It was really tough for me for a very long time when someone wanted me to just, oh, we just want you. We don't want to pay for the other musicians or whatever.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was really tough for me because I felt like you know, probably I think probably they're going to think, boy, he sure would be good if he had his other musicians or whatever. But fortunately, I was able to get to a point where I could do something kind of channeling or implying the other musicians, so that hopefully you can almost feel them in the space, in the
Yeah,
time of
yeah.
jazz. So that's kind of the idea. So I'm really glad that I'm able to, to get something because there's only me, So
Well, it's I
I
mean,
got
what you
to
do
do.
is beautiful. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. You don't need drums and bass and everything else from what you create. I mean, like your music fills the room. It's fantastic.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I would love to have that, but
Yeah,
at least
sure.
I'm able to give. At least I'm able to do this in situations where I don't. So I do feel thankful that I was able to, just really in the past few years, get something together like this where I could.
Yeah. So let's get back to Jazz for Peace. So how's it
Yeah.
going? What are you doing? Tell me a little more about the organization.
So, we embarked on after I recited the poem, then I put it to music for the next concert, and I started the show out with the music of Jazz for Peace, the musical performance. The band I had, we started out, and then that came out in the in the press. DellaRatta starts concert out with Jazz for Peace, and so now I was like, well, I'll do a couple of concerts in New York, maybe I don't know what. Then I thought, you know what? I'll help a few outstanding causes. There's got to be at least 12 or 13 in New York City.
You
Such a
would
big city.
think. Yeah, it
I,
stands to reason. Yeah.
I had no idea there were 60,000 registered nonprofits just in New York City alone.
Crazy.
So that was when I stumbled onto something. It was almost like Jed Clampett, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he's shooting some food up through the ground. From, philanthropically up through the ground come a bubble and crude
Right.
with this whole idea of, oh my God, not only are there a zillion of these outstanding causes in New York City, but they're all around the world. So after I really, kind of shot my wad, so to speak, in New York, yeah, hopefully I have to edit that out. But
Oh, no, that's going to be on every single every single link we have is shooting your wad.
oh, okay, good. Because I kind of what I would do is I would play it out until I couldn't anymore because it was convenient to play the New York gigs around New York City.
Yeah.
But then I got a letter from the mayor who somehow got wind of what I was doing. And after reading his letter, it's like, you can't stop here. You got to do. And then I had a mission that was, I had to start getting over the state, And then by the time I made it to Chicago, I got a letter from Barack Obama
Oh,
because
wow.
he had been a senator
Yeah.
in, you know what I mean? So then by the time I got to Kenya, I got a letter from the prime minister. You see what I mean? So now it just started going all around the world. And, today, it's funny because today I received letters from Israel, Pakistan, Germany, and the Ukraine, all talking about the amazing, what they now feel is amazing that I did in 2002 when I brought Israeli, Palestinian, and American musicians to the United Nations.
And I was going to ask you about that specific thing, so I'm glad you brought it up. Tell me a little about that and what happened and what the results were.
I thought it was monumental, but I'm only the piano player. But I'm like, if I can get Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans together at the United Nations, to me, that's substantial. So I'm going to do it. A lot of the stuff I do, I wish somebody else would do it, but I stare and I stare and I watch. I'm like, I don't see, no one's going to do it. If I don't go do this, I don't know who the hell is going to. Maybe nobody. So I did that, and I was hoping the world would build on that because I wanted to address that situation way back when.
Yeah.
Now it's like, because I failed to get everybody on board.
Everybody's failed for 5,000 years to get everybody on board. So, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so I shouldn't beat myself up too badly, but it's weird because of that. I'm getting more well known by the day for people who look at that and say, you know what? Gosh darn it, he was right. He was onto something back then, and we should have, followed his ideas or whatever to try to, because when you've got Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans playing music, you have common ground.
Yeah.
And
Well,
right
music is common
now,
ground for everybody in the world, right? I mean, music brings all of us together, no matter race, color, culture, creed. Doesn't matter.
that's what I noticed. That's what I knew when I started, after a while, when I had started Jazz for Peace. And in that poem, I realized that, you can divide people a million ways, but music will, no matter which way, music will unite them.
Totally. What's the next gig for Jazz for Peace?
There's so many. Jazz for Peace now is a solution provider. So, maybe people don't want to change. And of course, change is hard. People want to stuck in their thing. They don't want to change. But right now, people are fascinated that in this journey, not only have we helped outstanding causes, over 850, 9 times just to Africa alone, but we've also learned so much from these, heroes of mine that just go out and try to solve these problems because they're passionate about it, and it makes them wealthy on the inside, spiritually.
Yeah.
And I draw from them, I learn from them, and now we have solutions. So now, if you don't want to solve the problem, that's fine, but don't pretend you do. And that's what's going on too. So we're kind of in, I hate to be a pest, but sometimes I have to say to people, listen, if you want to solve the problem with technology, the fact that it's taking people's jobs, there is a way. We have the solution. You want to hear it? I'll tell it to you. You know what I mean? If you want to solve the Israeli Palestinian conflict, we actually have what I believe is a solution that Israelis and Palestinians would vote in favor of. I'll tell you if you want it. If you want to solve the problem with a trickle down economy causing problems in our world where the people who need the money to do the good work they're doing that can solve our problems are getting it last, I have a solution. So you can pick any one or three. I don't know, probably have to have another podcast to go through all of them.
I was going to say, Rick, we could sit here all day and talk about all the different things you're doing. So but I do kind of cut it a little short. Take me out with your favorite song, and let's feel the power and music of Rick DellaRatta.
Okay, you got it. I could while away the hours, conferring with the flowers, consulting with in my head. I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching. If I only had I'd unravel every riddle for every in trouble. With the thoughts I'd be thinking, I could be another Lincoln if I only had rain. And I could tell you why the ocean's near the shore.
What a treat. Yes. I feel like I should send you a cover charge or something. Where can people find you, Rick?
You know, a great way to get a hold of Jazz for Peace, especially if you're affiliated with an outstanding cause, or you have a nonprofit, or you have an artistic project, or you have an arts organization, or anything, is an email, just generic email, info@jazzforpeace.org, info at jazzfor dot pea, jazz for peace, jazzforpeace.org. info@jazzforpeace.org. And then, of course, jazzforpeace.org is our website. If you want to find out about me, Rick DellaRatta, .com. And I have a famous quote that you could put Rick DellaRatta famous quote into Google if you ever want to read that and be inspired, because you'll get to a famous quotes
Well,
website.
let's hear it.
The famous quote, which came out in an article right before the first Jazz for Peace concert, where I actually played the music of Jazz for Peace, was I just happened to say it off the top of my head again. I said to the guy interviewing me, if we would fill our souls with our greatest qualities, just fill our souls with things like creativity, artistry, humanity, intellectuality, things of that nature, we would have a better chance at avoiding the behavior that leads to destruction. And that's something I'd like to give out to people that are, in middle age, facing middle age, as I am, as you are.
Yeah.
If we can get up every day and do that, fill our souls up with that, you'd be surprised at the results. And not only that, but all of a sudden your middle age starts to play it to your advantage,
Yeah.
instead of your detriment.
Well, it's been a real joy to talk to you today, Rick, to meet you, to listen to your music and your art. I mean, it's inspiring, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure, Dan.
And that's it, man. Another episode of Middle Age Mess with Rick DellaRatta, jazz guru. Don't forget to like and subscribe at middleagemess.com. Go to jazzforpeace.org. Send an email to Rick. Spread some good vibes in the world and do some good things, and we'll see you next time. Rick, you're a lot of fun, man. You're a lot of fun.
Thank you.